Do you want to do more than follow orders? Think outside of the box and manifest your dreams? Then you've come to the right show. Welcome to the award-winning podcast, Holding Down the Fort by U.S. VetWealth. I'm your host, Jen Amos, a Gold Star daughter, veteran spouse, and entrepreneur. For Season 8, we continue our wonderful partnership with the Rosie Network to highlight motivational stories of personal growth, financial awareness, and autonomy in our military community. We're also excited to showcase our partnership with Blue Water Advisors. Well, we have a lot in store for you this season, so let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome back. Jen Amos here, and I got a question for you. Have you found creative outlets that help you manage stress and anxiety? Alexis Harlow with Mindfully Military has found her outlet through mindful journaling. Alexis shares her experiences as an active duty Air Force spouse, including her adaptation to new environments and the inspiration behind Mindfully Military, which is a 52-week journal designed for military spouses. Mindfully Military is more than just a journal. It's a tool for empowerment, helping spouses find stability amidst the chaos of military life. From coping with culture shock to addressing mental health within the military community, Alexis's story is one of resilience, creativity, and empowerment. Listen to how personal growth and community support can transform challenges into opportunities for self-discovery and connection. Alexis, thank you again so much for being on the show. I hope that you all enjoy episode 184, Alexis Harlow on empowering military spouses through mindful journaling. If you want to get a hold of Alexis while you are listening to this conversation, go ahead and check out the show notes of this episode. You'll be able to find her website and how to get a hold of her in the show notes. If you do not know how to do that, or you are listening to this via browser, you can go visit holdingdownthefortpodcast.com. Go ahead and put in the search episode 184 to get this episode and get the show notes from there, directly from our website. So thank you all so much, and I hope you enjoy listening or watching, because this episode is also available on our YouTube channel, which you can also find in the show notes of this episode. All right, enjoy. All right. Hey, everyone. I am really excited to be here today with Alexis Harlow with Mindfully Military. Alexis, welcome to Holding Down the Fort.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be on here.
Yeah. So for people that are getting to know you for the first time, give us a quick snapshot of your life right now.
Yeah. So my husband is active duty Air Force, and we are at our second base at FE Warren. And it has kind of been like a culture shock because we're from Texas and we were in Oklahoma before this. And now I woke up this morning and it's negative 22. There's like 4 inches of snow on the ground. And I think the biggest culture shock was that people continue on with their lives when it snows. Like in Texas, if it snows, or Oklahoma, like it's shut down. Like no one is going anywhere. No one's doing anything. So that was like the biggest thing. It's just kind of like getting used to that. But yeah, and then I do have a full-time job, and then I do Mindfully Military. I've been a military spouse for about 5 years now. So it's been exciting, been through deployments, TDYs. This was actually like our first official PCS, and that was interesting. We did a ditty, we did it ourselves, and I was like, oh my gosh, is this even worth it, really? But yeah, so we're here now, and I do Mindfully Military. I spend my weekends, my afternoons kind of working on content, seeing like where my journal needs to be, which if you don't know what Mindfully Military is, it is a 52-week journal for military spouses. It has like 12 chapters, something to focus on each week, something to kind of just calm the chaos that the military life brings, something to habit track, set goals in, and just kind of like some decompression coloring pages that I put in there and some drawing pages. And it's just kind of like I don't want to say like one size fits all, but it kind of caters to everyone's needs, I would say. So yeah, we launched that May of 2023. And ever since then, it's just my life and my business has kind of been like a little roller coaster. So yeah.
Just a little roller coaster.
A little, yeah.
Yeah, I want to make a comment about the snow. So I lived in California for 20 years. And then when we moved to the East Coast, we did not get like 4 inches of snow like you did. But I remember the first time living in Richmond, Virginia, and the first time I saw snow, my thought was like, how do people live? Like,
Right.
how do they get, and then that's the first time I saw people salting the roads. And I was like, they would spend all night like just salting the roads. Yeah. And, for my husband who grew up in the Midwest, that was very familiar to him. And for me, I'm like, whoa, like this is so crazy. But even so, like for me working from home, I was like, how do people get to work? How do people live their life? So I can definitely relate to that culture shock of like, yep. How is this possible? And how are you all still existing? And it almost makes you be like, wow, was I like sheltered for a long time or something? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, sheltered by the weather, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, although I do know Texas can get pretty hot.
Oh, yeah. I know. I'm like, okay, so people can deal with the snow, but I mean, whenever we were stationed at Altus, it was like a blow dryer. Like it was 110 degrees. The wind is blowing like 30 miles an hour. I was like, this is absolutely miserable. So I'm actually excited for this summer to see how it is. But yeah.
Yeah. Might be a little, the weather probably won't be as intense, right? I mean, who knows? Because like for me living in Virginia, every season has its own character, like winter, relatively it's really cold, but summer is summer. It's like humid, it's hot, there's dragonflies and all the bugs outside that I can't handle, and then the cockroaches, like, cause we live by the beach and it's like real life happening out here. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, I was living in a California bubble for way too long. And it's like crazy. Cause when I was a military kid, like, I did experience 4 seasons when I like lived in Japan and stuff, but I think I was too young to like really know the difference. And now as an adult, it's like, how do people do this anyway? Like I've lived out here for a handful of years now and I'm like, okay, I think I got the hang of this. And, like I have my community out here now and it's not so bad, but I know that like, it's an adjustment. It's an adjustment to uproot yourself. And I know this isn't the first time that you and your husband have moved. So it's a very interesting life. And that being said, I have to say that I'm very intrigued with Mindfully Military and the fact that you have this self-reflection journal. And I'm curious, where did this initially begin for you to, create something like this?
Right. Okay. So kind of a depressing story, but, it had a good turnout in the end. Whenever we were stationed at Altus, Altus is a rural Air Force base. Like you're in a town of 10,000 people. There is nothing around you besides like an hour away, which is Lawton and Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And resources there are limited. And whenever we moved there, there was just a lot of suicides that kept happening on the base. Like,
oh my.
We were in like a little duplex, like in base housing, and like my neighbor, like right across from me, like did commit suicide. And
oh my goodness,
it was really sad. Yeah. And I worked from home at that time. So I kind of watched it all happen. And I was just kind of like, oh my gosh, like this keeps happening like over and over. Like there has to be something that we can do, something that can be done in a sense. And I was just like, wow, like if that one person knew maybe how to cope or maybe like know that, hey, like we see you, like you're not alone, like stuff like that. I was like, maybe something positive can come out of this. So Mindfully Military wasn't like, oh, I'm going to make a journal tomorrow. It kind of came with, I was like, I want to do like a self-care box and do like maybe shower steamers, maybe like aromatherapy and have like a self-care book in there or something like that. And then I started to look, I was like, I used Brave Crate whenever my husband was deployed. Love Brave Crate. It's amazing. But I noticed that there was that and there was like no soapbox. And I was like, okay, maybe we can like shift this. And I was like, and I was really like intrigued with self-help books at the time. Cause like being a teacher, I was a teacher and they just really helped me kind of like get through the day and like just kind of decompress from every day. And so whenever that happened, I was like, okay, here's a self-help book. Like what could I do to actually have some sort of self-help, but like in a journal? Like this one book isn't going to work for everyone. So let's try to think outside the box and have something that might work for everyone. And then I started seeing like other journals that was meant for, like the general population. And I was working on one too. And like just one time, like in my living room, I was like, oh my gosh, like I was writing in my journal and I was like, what if I actually made a journal? Like, what if I made a journal for military spouses, for the military life that people can relate to and be like, okay, yes, like there's change, there's so much stuff happening, but you can control the chaos that the military brings. And you can empower your journey, which is kind of like my tagline is like empower your journey, because when I was stationed at Altus, like I was like, why am I here? Like, why am I in the middle of nowhere with 10,000 people? This is not ideal for me. Like I came from a city, I graduated college, and I was like, this is terrible. But
this is where my college degree took me, to rural America.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh my gosh. And then, Oklahoma teacher pay, I was like, oh, this is even better, So I was not impressed at all. But I just kind of realized that, shifting my mindset, not being like, why am I here? And like, why is this the only place I can be at right now? But like, what is my purpose here? Like, why was I put here? I was obviously put here for a reason, why is that? What can I do here, to kind of like shift my mindset to help more people in the community, to be involved in the community, to help like my husband's squadron if they need it, just kind of like come together. So whenever I started shifting my mindset and focusing like on positive affirmations and like really wanting to know my purpose of why I was there, that's kind of when Mindfully Military fell into place. And I was like, okay, maybe if I can get this message out to other spouses, and other people in the military, it will be better for them and they can, empower their own journey no matter where the military takes them.
Yeah, I love that. That reminds me of a lesson I've come to learn, which is the grass is greener, not on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it.
Right.
And I think it's having that attitude of like focusing on finding purpose in the present. It's like you're placed here for a particular reason. And even if you weren't, it's better to find that purpose. It's better to do that. And I like how you share that, this came from a very dark place or a very dark time, being in rural America and like feeling so isolated, working from home, watching people around you, sadly and unfortunately take their lives. And it actually gets me to reflect on this podcast show. I started this podcast show summer 2019 out of like depression and bouts of loneliness. Like my husband and I were pretty transient at that time, and like I couldn't establish like local roots just yet. And so for me, it was like, okay, if I can't establish local roots, let me try to build something online. And like podcasting was like the best route for me. And so even till this day, even though today we are as rooted as we can be, and I do have like a local social life that I'm really grateful to have built. Yeah. Continuing to do this show is very like healing and therapeutic for me, and also a way to connect with, people such as yourself who are, actively living this life and doing good work, so it's very meaningful to hear that. And I think for the listener, it's an inspiration to, if ever you have those moments where it is a dark season or a dark time in your life, to try to find the light in that, like as dark as a room could get, you could find a crack of light somewhere. If it's just out the window, I think. And it sounds like you were able to do that. And I just want to commend you for that, because some people would just, as we see very clearly, decide to go in that downward spiral. I don't want to like shame them or fault them for that. We, there's a reason for everything. I'm just here to commend you for trying to find the light in that time. And as a result, this is what you have, and this is how you're helping military spouses today.
Yes. Thank you. I always say like, there's always rain. There's always a rainbow after the rain. Like, there's always going to be some sort of brightness like on the other side, no matter what that means. And sometimes like the brightest things come out of the darkest times, which is not great, but it's just kind of how life works.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great. It sounds to me that you're like equipped with a lot of mantras and a lot of ways to reframe your situation. And of course, I'm sure the journal has a lot of prompts to encourage people to, reframe, reflect, or even just relax. Like I like how you incorporate the coloring book side of it, so people can decompress and, relieve some stress and stuff. Like I remember a couple years ago, I started to become more aware of adult coloring books. And I was like, That's actually pretty smart because,
Yeah.
I don't want to do like a kid's coloring book. I'm going to finish that pretty quickly, but it's like more intricate, for adults to like, I always found that really fascinating. But anyway, I wanted to talk a little bit about how your involvement with the Rosie Network has played an influence into, helping mindfully military.
Yeah, the Rosie Network was great. Like, it was amazing to go through. I think our class size was maybe like 9 people to begin with, I want to say. And then towards the end, I think only 5 were left. But it was a great experience. I had Laura Torres as my instructor. She was awesome. I remember like there were times whenever we were getting towards the end of like graduation, and I was like, look, I'm working. I don't know if I can do this. Like, I really don't want to do this, actually. And I was like, I have to do like a vendor fair, like my military and family readiness center. We had a military spouse retreat. They wanted me to be there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to get everything together in like 2 weeks. I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. And I was talking to Laura and she was like, no, you can do this. Like, just get out there and like, go do it. Like, what's the worst that could happen? And I was like, okay, yeah, true. Because I am like very introverted. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't really know if I want to do that. But she gave me like such great tips and like such great advice and really contributed to my self-esteem as a business owner and kind of like getting out there. And she was like, this is what you wanted. Like, you wanted your military and family readiness center to approach you and everything else. And she was like, this is what they're doing. Like, time to show up, time to like be there for them. And then she was just like, her main thing is always remember your why. Like, why are you doing this? What's your purpose? Stuff like that. And that was kind of like what also made Mindfully Military kind of pivot is like, remember my why. Like, my why is mental health. Like, so let me create something that will help mainly with mental health. So yeah, her thing was remember your why. And with that, I was able to do like the vendor fair and kind of get everything together for that. And then partner with the CEO of Parade Deck at the time, Andrew Appleton, and kind of get out some journals for Military Spouse Appreciation Day. And that was like really great. I would have never really realized or even thought the year before, like, so May 22, I would have never been like, oh, I'm going to be like, partnering with the CEO and like giving away my journals that I've written.
Yeah.
All this other stuff. So it was just kind of like a whirlwind. But yeah, the Rosie Network helped a lot, helped me keep on track, kind of create a business plan. Because like no one in my family has ever owned a business. It is a very different way of thinking and all these other things. So yeah, and the main thing was like the resource was free and it worked in my schedule. It was Sunday nights. It was great. It was a great option. And I'm really glad that I did it.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that because if there's anything that what is it? I was actually, my husband and I just had a conversation with Stephanie Brown, the founder of the Rosie Network, right? And we were talking about like how she started the Rosie Network. And one of the things that Stephanie brought up in our conversation is actually first my husband said the typical stat of like 9 out of 10 businesses fail in their first year. But then Stephanie added 9 out of 10 businesses fail if they don't have mentorship. And that was like very profound that she said that. And so really the difference between a successful entrepreneur and maybe not so successful is the amount of help and resources that they get. And I think that's the amazing thing about Rosie Network, the fact that they are dedicated to helping, people such as yourself, like with resources and mentorship and accountability and encouragement, to make this possible because you could have every excuse. Technically, you could because you work full time, you're in the military, military life, those two alone is a lot to handle,
Sure.
and for some people, they have kids, right? They have a family, they have people to take care of. And so it's kind of like you can have every excuse or those can all be reasons to do what you do.
Right.
And so I think it's just, again, like, I just want to commend you for even like taking advantage of the resource and graduating because some people don't make it all the way through for, for their own reasons. It's neither right or wrong. It just is. But out of this, you came out of, this business and these opportunities and these partnerships that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for just a little encouragement and saying that you could do it.
Yeah, for sure. And I also want to give a big shout out to Military One Source because they are like one of the greatest resources that I feel like some military spouses don't even really know exists. Like they know it exists, but they don't know how to utilize it. And I remember like I got laid off from my job and I called them and I was like, hey, like I'm having a hard time finding a job. Like I knew I could call Military One Source because I always see like the brochures outside like the Family Readiness Center. And like from that moment that I called them and they picked up the phone, like they instantly connected me with a career coach. And they also have like entrepreneurship like coaches too that will kind of help you mentor and stay on track. And like having her and working with the Rosie Network was really great because it just kind of went hand in hand. And like I feel like a lot of spouses don't know about Military One Source and like how to utilize it. So I just want to say, like, if you're thinking about an idea that you may have, like they actually have, you know, people there that can listen to you and be like, okay, like, and the point of Military One Source was my career coach, Kristen. She was like, have you heard of Rosie Network? And I was like,
love it.
Oh, and she was like, no, it's like this free resource that exists for, you know, military and military spouses. Like you should check it out and send in like your info. And I did. And within like a few weeks, I think they were already enrolling me like into the Rocky Mountain cohort.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. And I think, again, a testament to seeking out that help. You know, I think that military life can easily feel isolating and that you're the only one going through what you're going through. And the fact that you sought that out and you let them know what you wanted, what you needed, what you weren't sure what you wanted, you know, and the fact that they were able to give you that guidance and refer you to the Rosie Network, I think is absolutely amazing. And yeah, and I hope that you also give yourself a pat on the back for that willingness, because again, there are people, there have been people who just, you know, they just don't for their own reasons, but because you did, like, you know, here you are, I think almost a year out into starting your business and being able to, what it sounds like, kind of find a good way to balance everything, you know, full time, living the military life, and then also doing the journal. So yeah, I hope you give yourself some flowers for that.
Oh,
you know,
thank you. Yeah, I try.
You know, one day at a time.
Right. Yeah.
So anyway, like I was saying, you started this last year, from my understanding.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what does balancing all that look like for you, and what does your cadence look like, and you know, how do you stay on top of things without, I don't know, going insane, if that's possible?
Yeah. My husband helps me a lot. He is like a partner kind of in my business. Whenever I was getting my website, whenever I was getting my website done, I was like, okay, this is what I want to do, and like everything else. And me and technology, we sometimes get along, but not all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't do this. Like, I can't even figure out like this website. Like, how am I going to do this? And he was like, okay, just calm down. And like, he gets on his PC and like finishes it and like, you know, puts the finishing touches on it. And he's like, what do you think of this? So yeah, he has been like a really big help kind of with keeping everything together, I would say. So we work as a really good team. And I will say, I'm not the perfect business owner. You know, like I don't have content coming out every other day. You know, I want to enjoy Mindfully Military. So I post things that should resonate with people. You know, I do like TikTok videos of me packing up journals and selling them. Like this past Christmas, I got my first spousely order. So I was like really excited about that. So like I did a video on that, you know, posting if we have something like new come out on Amazon or like a new price or like a sale or something. And then just kind of posting like mindful tips also on Instagram. So I would say that I just kind of I want to find a balance that I enjoy in it. And if I'm not enjoying posting content every other day, and I think it's more of a headache than it is enjoyfulness, like I just really don't do it. And then I kind of like, I did have like this content schedule and I really was trying to like do it. And then I just felt like I was getting too overwhelmed and too burnt out. And from teaching, I know that once I hit that point, I'm like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. So I try to find like a joyful, like whenever I want to do content, like I have like these spurts, like my husband like was tripped out this past week. So I sat down and did content because I felt like doing it and I was really productive. So yeah, I try to have like, you know, 3 or 4 goals every month that I try to meet for my business and then, you know, go based off that. But I don't want to get too burned out on it. And I just want to make stuff, you know, that's resourceful and not like too much fluff, I guess.
Yeah.
And then just kind of like pivoting Like the Rosa Network has taught me like shifting ideas. So like this past week, I called like the Malmstrom Air Force Base Military Family Readiness Center and I was like, hey, like I'm Alexis Harlow. I'm the owner of Mindful Military, which no one has a clue what that is. But I'm like, I have like a 52-week journal. Can I just send it to you so you can just put it in your Military Family Readiness Center? Because my main purpose and what brings me joy is if a spouse walks in there and is like, what is that? And then she picks it up and then she's like, oh, wow, like I could really use this. So it's not about sales or anything like that. It's literally about just like, if I can help a spouse and they see my journal and it can help them like that, I just want it to be a resource. And I want more spouses to know about the resource. So that's why I kind of just directly contact military family readiness centers, especially like the global strike community like Minot and Malmstrom and here at FE, bases that are kind of desolate and, where spouses may struggle a little bit more. So yeah, I've kind of pivoted to that and just hoping that someone that needs it will see it.
Oh, I think that's wonderful. And I was thinking about what you're saying about like, it's not about sales. And I think like a good way to, what I've come to learn is rather than call it sales, call it being of service, like you're servicing people. And, and that's the most gratifying thing when you know that something that you created out of nothing, like it was your idea, it was your concept, it was your vision. It actually improves like someone else's life. Like nothing can be more gratifying than that.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. And I was also thinking about as a business owner, it's like, I think a lot of us get into business because of what we want to offer, but there's like the phases. There's like, you have to wear different hats when like creating the book or creating your journal to actually putting it out there. And so I know you mentioned earlier that you're a little bit more on the introverted side, which I can relate to. Yeah. So I'm curious to know on your end, like what's your mindset shift or how do you like get your mind right to, make content or put yourself out there, make those phone calls? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah. Before I made that phone call, I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was like, okay. It was like, what's the worst they could say? No. And I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll just try something else. But yeah, it's kind of like, I'm like, I worked so hard for this. I put in countless hours of, making the journal, making my website and creating all of my other stuff. I'm like, well, it would kind of be dumb to stop now. Like, yeah. So I'm just like, I put in all this work and you don't want to have any regrets. Like in your business, you don't want to have any regrets. I'm like, if I sat here at my kitchen table and didn't call Malmstrom, I would probably regret that, I'm not going to regret, picking up the phone and being like, hey, this is me. And they said, sure, send it, and that was even more gratifying because for me, it's even more gratifying. I love like, a shout out to my old base, Aldous Air Force Base, but they actually bought like 8 journals for spouses there.
Wow.
And they did like a journaling class. And like, I love when the military helps military spouses. Like it is what they need to do. It is great. Like that is what I want. I want, the military to help military spouses. I want, a spouse to buy a journal, obviously, off Amazon or wherever like they want to. But it's even more gratifying when the military is like, oh, this is actually going to help spouses. Let me purchase one, let me help our spouses that are here. So that was really great. But yeah, just having no regrets and just kind of, even if you have to make a TikTok video 10 times, which I had to do, just getting it out there because I'm like, I would regret not making this TikTok video. I would regret, especially whenever it was my first order on Spousely, I made a video off of that because I was like, this is really great. Like, I love Spousely. They, you eat most of what you make off there and it's so much better than Amazon or Lulu. Like, I have the journal on Lulu, but it's so much better, especially because it's military spouses helping military spouses as well. So yeah, just having no regrets and just being like, I worked, this is my vision.
Yeah.
If it's just like a job, if you're going to go to work, I mean, why not, be the best that you can for it. And I'm always like, that's my favorite quote is like, actually by Martin Luther King Jr., like be the best where you're at, like be the best no matter where you are. And in Altus, I was determined to be the best, like no matter what. Yeah. No matter if I was there or where. So yeah.
Yeah. I also like that attitude of, hey, I made it this far. There's no going back.
Yeah.
Like it's like I put in so much time and effort and love and sweat and tears into this. Like, why would I let a 2-letter word no, keep me from like actually putting it out there?
Right.
And so, I think that's awesome. And it's just great to hear, the communities that have supported you and also that you're supporting, what do you call it? Military One Source. Military One Source, the Rosie Network, Spousely. I know you mentioned Brave Crate earlier, and I believe we've interviewed him on this show. So I'm going to have to like check I've interviewed so many people at this point where I'm like, okay, I'm pretty sure that name sounds or that business sounds very familiar. So I'm going to have to look that up myself. But I love that it's like, that's one thing I really admire about the military spouse community is that, you all look out for each other and support each other as much as possible. And it just must feel so meaningful to know that you're not in this life alone and that you have this whole army of spouses in a sense to, support and advocate for one another.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that must be really refreshing and comforting for you, having been in this life for like 5 years now?
Yeah. Yep. Yes. It's definitely interesting. I was, with my husband before he joined the military and seeing him like, I was at basic graduation and now he's a staff sergeant. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is really happening. Like, yeah. All, 6 years of it really. So yeah.
Yeah. I'm curious to know, I know that your husband really supports you in your business. Like, tell me a little bit about when you first came up with this idea, how did your husband receive it?
Okay. Yeah. I was like, I have an idea. Like, I was like, I've just been thinking, and I knew if he was going to be like, no, like that is not a good idea. I was going to be like, okay, it's probably not a good idea because he keeps a level head, I would say. Me, we switch off and on, but if I'm like really excited about something, I'm like, oh, I could do this, and it might not turn out like super great. But I talked to him and I was like, I have this idea. I was like, and it was like whenever the box is, I was going to do a box. He's like, no, I really think that's a good idea. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm not, just making stuff up, thinking that it's just going to work.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like one of those people, it's not good, but I do need like reaffirming from people. Like if I have an idea or I think it's like a good idea and like, hey, what do you think about this? And if they're like no or yes, then that kind of determines my mindset.
Yeah.
But he was like, no, I think it's a really good idea. And then whenever I switched to the journal side more of it, he was like, yeah, I think that's like a really good idea too. So that's kind of how he reacted to it. And he was like, yeah, like I can help you if you need me to. And stuff like that. So yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing more encouraging than to have your spouse on your side to say that's, even if it's like, yeah, that sounds great. Like it's either that or, it's that or nothing.
Yeah, pretty much
sometimes. So yeah, it's like funny because, a lot of the work I do is with my husband. And so whenever I do stuff that's like, that's my idea. Not that he ever like shot me down before, but there is that moment of like, is he going to like it? Is he not going to like it? And, sometimes he just says like, he'll just say like, okay. And then I, depending on how I interpret that is how, that it depends on my, like how it affects me. But yeah, it's like, I tell myself, well, he didn't say no. Right. So I guess like, so I'll take that,
exactly.
Cause I just think like, at least for me, it's like I do care a lot about what he says and his support. And I want to make sure that whatever we do, like supports like our overall like vision for our family and our business and all that stuff. So I think it really is helpful to have a spouse that is like in your corner for that and lets you run with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
Especially whenever designing the journal. That was, was like my journal. Like you can see, like you have to, kind of line things up in different colors and stuff. And he's very supportive whenever we were trying to design it as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm really fascinated by the journal because I think it's a good opportunity for anyone that decides to get the journal. It's a great opportunity for people to like have alone time and self-reflection time or for people who maybe never knew how to do that. Like I'm sure it helps prompt them on how to do that. And so I'm curious to know what has been the feedback like since you've had this journal come out.
Yeah, I've had like some pretty good, I've had pretty positive reviews from the spouses that purchased it. Whenever I was in Altus, I was part of like the military spouse business community there. And Jen Harvey, she was actually an Army spouse, but they chose to live in Altus, an hour away from the base. And she kind of helped like bring it all together because there wasn't really one before that. And it was actually really sweet because she was my first review, like whenever she got the journal, and she like made this big review on Amazon. And I've had like a couple other spouses review the book, and I haven't had any bad reviews yet. So,
Yeah.
and like that's another thing that keeps me going, I would say, is like, okay, I have these good reviews. Like, I don't want to, not make this journal accessible to spouses or anything like that. So yeah, we've had very positive feedback, and I've even gotten some feedback from spouses that are like, I love the journal and it took me to journal in my own way. And I'm like, that is perfect. That is why I put like a space for you on the other side of the reflection prompt, because if you don't feel like reflecting on that, or that's not what you're really like wanting to do in that moment, and you have something else on your mind, switch to the space for you and write what is actually on your mind. Yeah, it was really refreshing to hear that, because I was like, oh, great. Like, that's what I wanted. And, they just reaffirmed that. And they're like, yeah, this is where it took me. And I started reflecting about this and thinking about this and like, how our challenges are and everything like that. And a lot of them love the positive affirmations that I have every week. So I was like, that is great. Like, that's also why I put it in there too. So, yeah, we've had very positive feedback. And I'm just glad that spouses, like, I don't want this to limit your brain. Like, I want it to, kind of get your brain going on where you need it to go.
Yeah. I think that's wonderful. And it sounds like there's a lot of flexibility with the journal. Like you don't restrict them to answering certain prompts. It's like, hey, there's a page where it's just for you. You could just do whatever you want, or you can color also, and it's like just giving ourselves that grace to reflect the way that is comfortable for you and inspiring for you at that time. So I think that's amazing. And yeah, I think it's really exciting, Alexis, that you've created this. I have heard about like care packages and, other types of businesses, but oddly enough, I think you're the first one I've heard that is a military spouse focused reflection, journal. So I just want to commend you. And I want to know now, like, where do you see yourself now and the next year? Because we're about to do year one and we're entering year two. So what does it look like for you right now?
Some kind of goals that I've put in my business is I really want to be in all the global strike. So Minot, Maelstrom, and FE. I want to be in their military family readiness center. I just want to have my journal there. So, whenever a spouse comes in, they see it. I also kind of want to be like in the like probably 5 Army bases, like in their family readiness center, and maybe 1 Navy base and 1 Marine base. So that is kind of like where I'm shifting my focus so that spouses know like where it exists. And then of course, like growing my online platform and stuff like that, because I do get like a lot of organic growth through there. And one thing that I'm going to celebrate is I remember whenever I first put up my website, oh my gosh, I think I was on the 5th page of Google. Like, it was embarrassing. Like, my SEO was not good at all. I was like, okay, no one is ever going to find me. Like, who goes to the 5th page of Google? And then I think like this past month, I checked my SEO and I like texted a couple of my friends and like my brother and sister who haven't, they're younger, they're like 15. And I was like, hey, type in mindfully military journals and send me a screenshot of what pops up. And I was the first page like on the SEO, and there was my picture and everything. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And like, that's another reason I'm not going to give up either, is because I was on the 5th page of Google. Now I'm like the first link, and it's like such a win. But
I love that. That's amazing. Yeah. And SEO is, even I'm actively studying it right now also, because I think it requires time. It's like you have to build trust with the search engines that like what you're offering is of value and what you're offering is going to be around for a while. So the fact that you're able to go from page 5 to 1 in less than a year is definitely something to celebrate about.
I know. Yeah, it was so exciting. I remember the articles being like before my like journals, and I was like, what even is this? But there's hope. There's hope at the end of SEO.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm curious if because I think when I was looking at your website, have you ever considered like a blog section to help with SEO, or like what have what are some tips and tricks on your end to, not to give away everything, but what have you come to find some top 3 things that you have found work for you?
I want to say for me, it's kind of different because I do have like a service, I would say. I haven't put out any blog posts yet. I mean, I do want to get to that, but just like content creating on Instagram, but then really being like kind of active on my Amazon account kind of grew my SEO a lot. Being on Parade Deck grew my SEO. TikTok also kind of like, I don't know really why, but whenever I started posting TikTok videos, I noticed like my SEO starting to kind of grow.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. Being on Spousely, kind of being active on like my online platforms, and then connecting with other military spouses that have larger following. That really helped my SEO too. I know we did a thing for Small Business Saturday and Black Friday, I think. And kind of like after that, and after they started connecting and we started like reposting each other's content, that is also when the SEO started to pick up too.
Yeah. So it sounds like having a presence and also a certain level of engagement has really fed into your SEO and being more searchable, which is great, because if you're just minimally involved, like if you do a little every day, or even, whatever that looks like for you, maybe every other day. Like I know everyone has their own cadence when it comes to online engagement. I know for me personally, it's hard for me to be on social media because the public feeds really suck me in. Yeah. So I prefer to use like a third-party scheduler that allows me to like engage with people through there. But because of that, I'm able to have like a better cadence like with my engagement. But it sounds to me from your end that even just doing minimal effort of being on there, being present, resharing every now and then seems to really help. Yeah, it does for sure. Yeah. Well, Alexis, I feel like we covered everything. I'm trying to think if I had any other questions to ask, but I really just want to commend you for everything that you've done with Mindfully Military so far. And it sounds like you're well balanced, you're centered. And if ever you're not, that's what the journal's for. I think it helps recenter. Yeah. And so I want to know if there's like anything else that you feel like I should be asking you that I haven't asked you yet. No, I don't think so. I think we hit all the good high points. So yeah. Sweet. Love it. Awesome. So yeah, well, like I said, I want to thank you so much for your time and congratulations on your success. And I wish you continued success. Thank you. I think one parting thought I'd like for you to share with our listeners is for anyone who wants to, think outside the box or take that next step to do whatever they want to do that's outside of the normal for them. Yeah. Like, what would you want to say to that person? Let's see. Okay. I would want to say, find something that inspires you. Like if you know that you have a good idea and you already are thinking outside the box, just take the next steps gradually and just kind of see like where it goes, get connected with Military One Source, get connected with the Rosie Network, and have a good plan before, you jump off. But definitely make sure that you get connected. There are so many resources out there, and just to hear feedback, just to hear, like that's a good business plan. Why don't you work on this? What about this part of your business plan? There's so many different things to get connected. And if you have something that you think is a good idea, just do it. I mean, the worst that could happen is up to you and kind of like how your business plan is. But I would say if you're going to regret not trying it and not doing it, I would go ahead and think outside the box and just kind of see where your idea grows, and you might surprise yourself like I did. Yeah. Love it. Well said, Alexis. Again, thank you so much for your time and for joining us here on Holding Down the Fort. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you so much for all that you do too for the military community. Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Hey, this is your host, Jen Amos. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of Holding Down the Fort by US VetWealth. Visit holdingdownthefortpodcast.com to access the full show notes of this episode, including resources mentioned and bonus content. Once again, that's holdingdownthefortpodcast.com. Lastly, stay after this outro music for something a little extra. Thanks again and chat soon. Bye for now. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the post commentary here at Holding Down the Fort after Alexis's episode on empowering spouses through mindful journaling. I thought I would take this opportunity to answer the reflection question asked at the very beginning. And I hope that you also take the opportunity to answer this yourself as well. So if you can recall, the question I asked at the beginning is, have you found creative outlets that help you manage stress and anxiety? For me, the obvious one is podcasting. Podcasting is the easiest creative outlet because, one, although I've been doing this for nearing 5 years now, it is a constant test of creativity. I have to get creative in the type of content I'm going to create, like the theme of the show, the types of people I'm going to interview, when I'm going to interview them, how I'm going to present it, how I'm going to market it. It's all an opportunity to be creative, to think on my feet. And because it makes me feel purposeful and productive and joyful, especially because I get to hear inspiring stories. I get to hear motivational stories of personal development, financial awareness, and autonomy. In that alone, it just naturally reduces my stress and anxiety to know that there are other people who are walking my shoes of entrepreneurship and, they're doing it anyway. They're committing to it. And to know that I'm not alone in this journey. I think that's another thing too, is having creative outlets that connect you to other people. It's just a good reminder that we're not meant to do life alone. We're not doing life alone. Other people can be walking similar journeys, and there's just something reassuring about that, and I think that in the military community, if you don't have a community, especially like an online community, since that's what a lot of us can do consistently because of all the moving around. If you don't have that, it's hard. It can feel very isolating and you can feel like you're the only one going through what you're going through. And so I just think that personally, any creative outlet that is shared with others is a great way to manage and reduce stress and anxiety. So that's my answer to the question. I'm curious to know for you, have you found creative outlets that help you manage stress and anxiety? And if you do, let us know. You can reach out to us, check out the show notes of this episode and how to do that. You can reach out to Alexis directly, or hopefully you just take this time to have a conversation with yourself or, journal. It's my hope that as the show continues on, whether this is your first episode or not, my hope in the post commentary is to give you all opportunities to reflect on what you just listened to and hopefully come out of it feeling more self-aware, productive, and, just present in your life and focus on the things that you can control versus the things that you may not be able to control as well. So all that being said, if you enjoyed this and you want to continue to eat up our content in between the episodes, you can always create a free membership on our portal, which is available at holdingdownthefortpodcast.com/portal. And from there, you get access to all of our bonus content, including our private podcast show Inside the Fort, where it's, more of a candid commentary of entrepreneurship, podcasting, and potentially bonus content from the guests themselves. So thanks for listening. See you in the portal, or I'll see you this Thursday, where we'll be featuring a replay of the live show that my husband, Scott Tucker, and Mike Wallace. So stay tuned and chat soon. Bye for now.